Hello everybody. Today we will be starting chapter 8 and this chapter is controlling. Now, controlling is a function of management we have already learned, and this is said to be the last function which every manager has to perform. Planning, organizing, staffing, and then comes controlling. In sequence, when we say when the work has to be performed and the objective has to be achieved, after planning, then comes organizing, then comes staffing, then comes directing, and then comes finally controlling. So this is the fifth function, and after this function the management cycle comes back again to planning's function. So it is not that after this function the management stops functioning. Sometimes in the exams also it is asked, is controlling the last function of management cycle? No. Controlling is not the last function of management cycle, because this cycle keeps on continuing and it brings back the management cycle again to planning function. As long as the organization has its objectives, the goals which it has to achieve, these functions will be in continuous cycle in the organization, and in that sequence, after planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling, again the cycle comes back to planning function. So keep this in mind. Before explaining what is controlling, I just needed to make this very clear that controlling, if in 1 mark question it is asked, controlling is not the last function of management, because it brings back the management cycle to planning function once again. Now, before learning what is controlling, we have to start from the very beginning. The first function of management which every manager has to start with is the planning function, where we have learned that it is planned in the organization what objective is to be achieved and how that objective has to be achieved. So goals are set through planning, and the activities which has to be carried out in order to achieve that goal, that is decided in advance, and that is what is planning in the organization. After plans have been determined, the activities have been determined, what all activities have to be carried out to achieve the organizational goals, the organizing function comes into existence. And that organizing function, it helps to set the roles which has to be carried out in order to execute those activities which has been determined in the planning function. So for determining the roles, there is need for the structure which has to be made in the organization, and that is called the organization structure, which defines and designs the various positions which will have to be created in the organization in order to get work done. After that organization structure is created in the organization, which helps to define the roles which has to be carried out by different persons to achieve the organization goals, the third function comes into existence, and that is staffing function. Those positions which has been created in the organization structure has to be filled through staffing function. After the positions have been filled, we see that the work has to start, because people, if they are occupying positions in the organization, they have to be instructed, they have to be guided to start the work in the organization, which is done through directing function. And that is why through directing function we see that the action begins in the organization, and once the action begins in the organization, that action takes place in the organization in order to achieve the organizational goals. So monitoring, after the action begins, there is need to monitor the progress of work from time to time. Check whether the work is being properly performed as per the standards set or not. If it is not being properly performed, what are the causes? Why is there deviation? What kind of deviation is there from the standard, whether it is minor deviation or major deviation? If the deviations are beyond the permissible limit, that is major deviation from the standard is taking place, it has to be corrected at that very stage. So corrective action has to be taken, remedial action has to be taken, so that minimum deviation from the standard occurs and the work is carried out in conformity with the plans to achieve the organizational goals. That is why controlling is that function which evaluates the work, the progress of the work, which is started after directing function in the organization, and corrective action whenever is required, that is taken to see that the work is in conformation with the plans and the work which is carried out by the subordinates that helps in the achievement of the organizational goals effectively and efficiently. So we will be learning what is controlling. Many times in my earlier classes I have explained to you the meaning of all these functions. Once again, we will be learning what is controlling, how do we define controlling. So controlling is the process of bringing actual results and desired results closer together. Desired result is the standard which has been set. So if the standard is set for 100 units, for example, 100 units per month, how far the actual result is meeting the desired result. So in a month, are we able to get or reach to this standard or not? For that, there is need to evaluate the actual performance, compare it with the desired performance, take corrective action, and bring the results closer to the standard, that is the desired performance. And this is what is done through controlling in the organization. So controlling is the process through which actual and desired results that are brought closer together. The more closer is the actual and the desired result, the better is the achievement of the organizational goals. So keeping this in mind, we see that controlling is required. Unless and until there is proper controlling, we won't be able to evaluate how the work is being performed in the organization, whether at individual basis or at departmental basis, or the organizational goals, to what extent it has been reached. We can take many examples. Controlling is one such function which is required everywhere. When we say everywhere, even in schools, you all are our students. Even in schools, there is need for controlling. Not only in the business organizations. So it is something which is done everywhere, where the evaluation of the work is done. So let us learn about the nature or characteristics of controlling. Basically, there are 4 features. First is controlling is a goal-oriented function. Controlling is that function of management which helps in achievement of organizational goals effectively and efficiently. We have learned. Because it is through controlling function that the work is evaluated or measured, the actual and the desired performance is compared, corrective action is taken, and effort is being made in the organization to bring the results closer to the objectives which has been set. That means the standards which has been set. Had this function not been there, or the management was not performing this function in the organization, we would see that the goal would not have been achieved. So always it is a goal oriented function. It is that function which helps in achievement of organizational goals. Controlling is a pervasive function. Pervasive means present everywhere. When we say everywhere, that means at all places, at all levels, all departments, all activities. Controlling is there. In an organization, when we see that at different levels the work is evaluated. Among individuals also there is evaluation of work. So not only in the organization, when we say all places, so if it is a school, there too we see that there is controlling. Educational institutions have this function being performed. If we talk about other places, there is also controlling. Whether we talk about any type of work, there is need for controlling. So in all activities, at all places, in all departments, we see that controlling is there. We can take so many examples in educational institutions, in you may say business organizations. So not only in business organizations but also in non-business organizations, we see that this function is carried out. Controlling is backward as well as forward looking function. It is both backward and forward looking. When we say backward, why is controlling backward? Because there is always a review of standard. The past performance that is compared with the standard, and that is what is makes controlling the backward looking function. And when we say forward looking means corrective action is taken in the controlling function. After comparison, there is need to take corrective action in order to bring actual and desired results closer together, to rectify any mistakes which it occurs, so that the results can be brought closer together. So whenever corrective action is always taken for the future, so it is considered to be forward looking function. Controlling is a continuous process. We have seen as long as the organization functions, as long as the organization has set its target, has a goal to achieve, this function will be carried out, because the evaluation of the work as per the standard will go on in the organization and help the organization to achieve its goal as per the predetermined standard. So it is something which is in continuous cycle, which is carried out in the organizations all throughout its life. That is why it makes it a continuous process. So these are the four functions of you may say nature of controlling. After this we will be talking about the importance of controlling. So controlling is an effective tool to evaluate the work in progress and see that the work conforms as per the standards which has been set in the organization. So let us see. It says first importance or advantage, also you can take it in that manner. It helps in accomplishing organizational goals. How? By comparing actual work with standard work, then analyzing deviations and its causes and taking corrective action so that the goals can be achieved effectively and efficiently. Thus, it helps in achieving organizational goals, as it works as an evaluative device, you may say. Judging the accuracy of standards. Second point. Importance of controlling, we are learning. Controlling helps in judging the accuracy of standards. Always it is said that standards have to be set correctly. It should be reliable and it should be set in objective terms. That means set in such a manner that it can be measured. Then only it can said to be objective. Now, once the standards are set, an organization tries to achieve that standard. Through the process of evaluation, it is checked whether the organization has been able to achieve its standard or not. And if need be, there can be revision and review of standards as per the changes taking place in the environment. We have to understand this. The accuracy of the standards, unless and until it is checked whether the standards have been properly set or not. If the standards have been properly set, then it is expected that the organization achieves that standard. But sometimes there is also need to see that after reviewing the standards in the light of changing situations as per the organization environmental changes, there is need to revise the standards. So unless and until there is controlling, that won't be possible. So in the light of changes taking place in the environment, we see that controlling function also helps to review and revise the standards as per the changes required in the environment to be adapted by the organization. So it is through the function of controlling that it is possible. Third, makes efficient use of resources, because it is through this controlling function that wastages are minimized, because each and every work at individual level, at organizational level, that is evaluated and monitored time to time. The progress of the work is checked, and that is why it helps to make the best use of resources through checking the work timely and correcting if in case of any need, so that the work is carried out in the organization as per the requirements, and it helps in the fulfillment of organizational goals with the best possible or efficient use of resources. Fourth, improving employees' motivation. Once the standards are set, and the employees working in the organization, they are well aware that they have to achieve this standard, then they are encouraged and motivated from inside to work to their optimum level to achieve the standard of the organization. So we see that the setting of the standards and the evaluation of the work as per the standard motivates the employees working in the organization to give their best performance and achieve the organizational goals as per the standards set. So in this way, we see that it acts as a motivator for the employees. Had there been no evaluation of the work as per the standard, the employees would not be motivated from inside, and they would not be in a position to work to their optimum level, and that would certainly be a discouraging factor for the organization if control was not there in the organization. So this acts as a motivator for each and every organization, because they know that there is a strict watch on their work, whether they are performing or not. So they are always on their toes to perform their work in the best possible manner, and are motivated from inside to give their best. So ensures order and discipline, because there is complete check of the work from time to time. There is watch on how they are performing. So there is always a possibility that all the employees working in the organization, they will be working honestly, they will not be disobeying, they will not be evasive, and they will contribute towards the organizational goal wholeheartedly, and there will be the best commitment from the employees. And in this way, we see that order and discipline is maintained. Just imagine, in a situation, if there is no watch, if there is no checking work, then there is always a possibility that the employees will not be attentive, employees will be evasive, the employees will be they will not be loyal, they will be absent, they will be dishonest. So these things will carry on in the organization, and that leads to indiscipline or disorder. But because there is proper checking and evaluation, and the progress of the work is monitored from time to time, we see that the organization is free from all these dishonest activities which the employees may perform in the absence of control. So ensures order and discipline. Finally, facilitates coordination in action, because there is some standard which each and every department, each and every individual, each and every specialist, and all the activities which are being performed have to carry out. That is why we see that there is proper interaction amongst the activities, amongst the departments, among the various levels, amongst the various specialists working in the organization, so that they are able to achieve that standard which has been set, and for which there is deliberate effort to bring their efforts in synchronization with the organizational goals. So in this way, we see that evaluation of the work and controlling of the activities of the various individuals working in the organization at various places, it helps in the achievement of the organizational goals effectively and efficiently. So these have been the importance of controlling. We can understand that because of this controlling, that the organizational goal is achieved, the standards, they are evaluated, and if need be, they can be reviewed and revised. Then the resources, they are put to best use, whether it is physical resources or material resources or financial resources or human resources. Employees, they are motivated in the organization to give their best performance if there is proper check or control on their activities which is being carried out by them. Then there is order and discipline, because each and every employee working in the organization works as per the needs of the organization, contributing their best and maintaining proper decorum and discipline which is required. And that helps in facilitating coordination in action, because of the work which is being carried out, that is being properly integrated in the organization we see that always it helps in achievement of standards, and in this way we can say that controlling that is very important function which is required to fulfill all these important functions. Now we are moving on to another topic, and that is limitations of controlling. It's not that controlling doesn't suffer from any demerit or it doesn't have any limitation. If there is proper controlling going on in the organization or evaluation going on in the organization, the things will be always be you may say good for the organization. Sometimes we see that the organization also suffers from the following limitations or disadvantages of controlling. Let us see what are the disadvantages. First is difficulty in setting quantitative standards. We have learned that checking of the work or evaluation of the standards is done. That means how far the work is as per the standards. But there is also always difficulty in setting quantitative standards. Standards can be set both qualitatively and quantitatively. Quantitative standards, it is easy to set and evaluate. But there are so many aspects which cannot be set quantitatively. There is need to find out other way, and the other way out is qualitative assessment. So standards can be quantitative or qualitative. But if the standard of any such activity which has to be evaluated cannot be set quantitatively, then it becomes very difficult to evaluate. And that is why we see it is easy to set the standard in terms of number of units produced, because quantitative standard can be set. But how can the standard of satisfaction level or motivation level or employees morale, these are some of the areas where we see that standards cannot be set quantitatively, and in these areas it becomes difficult, because quantitative standard means those standards which can be set numerically. Qualitative standard means which cannot be set numerically but otherwise. So in this case, if the standards have to be set qualitatively, then it becomes a difficult measure in case of controlling, because correct analysis in that case becomes a difficult problem. Then second point, little control on external factors. We have seen that an organization gets affected by the environmental changes which takes place, which is outside the organization or over which the organization doesn't have any control. And the standards once set by the organization to be achieved, henceforth the effect on the environmental factors may also affect the evaluation of the standards. And that is why we see that control on external factors, that is not possible, because that change is going to happen and the organization will have to adapt to those changes, and in that case controlling becomes difficult. Then resistance from employees. We also see that in an organization, whenever there is controlling taking place, it is something which restricts the freedom of the employees. And once it restricts the freedom of the employees, there is a chance of resistance from the employees. And if the employees resist to controlling, then the effect of controlling will be negative, and that is why it becomes a limitation. For example, we have seen many times CCTV cameras that is deployed. Also in the schools we have seen, in the classes there is CCTV cameras, because CCTV cameras, they are the controlling device to check the activities of the teachers, the students, what is going on in the classes, to see that work or the classes that is being properly conducted and there is order and discipline in the class. But sometimes that is taken negatively by the students and they break those cameras. Why? This shows their resistance, because they don't like it, because that restricts, that keeps a watch on their activities which is being performed by them in the classes. If they are mischievous, or if they are not studying properly or misbehaving in the class, that will be observed in the cameras. So they don't like it, as a result of which they resist, and that is the expression of resistance by doing something which is a misconduct. So in the organizations also we see that whenever through controlling restriction is imposed upon the employees working, sometimes that poses resistance from the employees, and if there is resistance from the employees, this controlling becomes a limitation. Then costly affair, we have seen that it is not, controlling is something where monitoring of the work is done from time to time, and for that much effort, time and cost is involved in it. Sometimes we see that heavy equipments that is also installed in order to control the activities of the organization, and overall it becomes quite expensive. So for small organizations, it becomes difficult to match up with that level of technology which the bigger organizations can avail in order to make the activities of the organization function properly. As a result, we see that it becomes a limitation. So in this way, we see that although there are some limitations in controlling, but it is something which is considered to be very, very important for each and every organization, because if controlling function is not performed, it would be difficult to achieve the organizational goals and reach to the standard which is expected to be achieved by the organizations. So this was the introduction part of controlling. After this, we will be talking about the relationship between planning and controlling function in our next class. Till then, thank you.